Let's talk a little bit about what's going on. First of all, what are you going to be looking for, first of all, this morning?
Well, most importantly is the question of the fact that the Republicans have requested a number of witnesses that have been rejected by the Democrat majority. Republicans requested 9 witnesses. Schiff vetoed 6 of those. We requested a minority day, which, by the way, isn't a request. That is a right that the minority has. One of the few rights that the minority has in the House is to ask for a day of hearings with their witnesses. That's not open to debate. It's not open to approval. That is a right in the rules. That's so far been rejected by Nadler. At least he's refused to acknowledge it. And in a democracy, in a free society, the prosecution does not get to choose which witnesses the defense calls, and yet that has been one of the big defects with these proceedings.
Yeah, and you heard Dana Bash just say she asked Jerry Nadler about that minority hearing yesterday, and he punted. He really didn't give a specific yes or a no.
Well, the Democrats love to say.
Go ahead, make your point.
No. The Democrats love to say that no one is above the law. They have one caveat, except for themselves.
All right, well, we'll get into that. But let me play this clip. This is also what Jerry Nadler, the committee chairman, told Dana yesterday. Watch this.
We have a very rock-solid case. I think the case we have, if presented to a jury, would be a guilty verdict in about 3 minutes flat.
What's your reaction to that?
Well, in the 2 weeks of hearings they had, one-sided with their hand-picked witnesses, not one witness was able to provide first-hand testimony that the president ordered a quid pro quo. 2 witnesses had first-hand knowledge of the president ordering that there not be a quid pro quo. Hearsay evidence is not allowed in court for a reason. It is gossip. It cannot be confirmed. And yet that is the entire basis of the Democrats' case. It would be thrown out of court in 3 minutes.
The Democrats make the point that if you read the rough transcript of that July 25th phone call between the president and President Zelensky, there's evidence there. They also say the president admitted as much on camera on October 3rd. Watch this.
Mr. President, what exactly did you hope Zelensky would do about the Bidens after your phone call? Exactly.
Well, I would think that if they were honest about it, they'd start a major investigation into the Bidens.
All right, so how do you defend that?
I think the president has every authority and right under the Constitution to conduct our foreign relations. He's commanded by the Constitution to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. The entire executive authority of the government is vested with the president. He has every right and every responsibility to request a foreign government to assist in the investigation of potentially corrupt dealings between American and Ukrainian officials. Don't forget that just last year, 3 Democratic senators wrote a letter to the Ukrainian government demanding that it cooperate with the Mueller investigation. The president's request is of exactly the same nature. The only difference is he actually has the constitutional authority and duty to make that request, which the senators did not.
Because the argument is that if he's really concerned about the Bidens, Hunter Biden, the son, Joe Biden, the former vice president, instead of asking a foreign leader for help in an investigation, go to the Justice Department, go to the FBI, and get them to investigate.
Well, we discussed this the last time I was on the show, and I went back and looked at the transcript again. He's asking for their cooperation with an investigation and referred them to the Attorney General. Now, what ongoing investigations are going on in the Attorney General's office, I don't know, but that was the reference that he made in the conversation. It is perfectly proper and appropriate for the President to do so.
We're seeing some prominent Republicans point the finger at Ukraine in their defense of President Trump's actions. Listen to Senator Ted Cruz of Texas on Meet the Press yesterday.
On the evidence, Russia clearly interfered in our election, but here's the game the media is playing. Because Russia interfered, the media pretends nobody else did. Ukraine blatantly interfered in our election.
All right, so the U.S. intelligence community has concluded, they briefed the Senate on this, that this is a conspiracy theory originally put out by Vladimir Putin himself. Why do you think there are some members of your party advancing this theory that the Russians are pushing?
Well, there's no dispute that Alexander Chalupa, a paid consultant for the DNC, was actively soliciting the Ukrainian embassy and officials within that embassy for dirt on the Trump campaign during the 2016 election. There is no dispute that there were Ukrainian officials interfering in our election by writing scathing editorials against President Trump's candidacy. If we're concerned about foreign interference in our elections, we ought to be concerned with all foreign interference on our elections.
But writing editorials and making statements is very different than hacking a DNC server, a computer, and stuff like that, which the Russians clearly did.
Well, clearly those allegations are of a far higher degree than what the Ukrainians were doing. But the fact that there were attempts by a DNC consultant to enlist the help of a foreign power in the election ought to be concerning to everyone. It is exactly the same principle, and if we are a system that values equal justice under law, we ought to be investigating these things regardless of whose ox is being gored.
But I just want to be precise. I know you got to run. But there's no evidence that Ukraine was doing anything close to what the Russian intelligence services were doing. Is that right?
The Ukrainian government, I would say we don't have any evidence of that. We do have evidence of Ukrainian government officials interfering, and we do have evidence, clear evidence, that the DNC's consultant was actively soliciting a foreign government for assistance.
Congressman McClintock, we'll continue this conversation down the road. I know you got to run. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, so moments from now, congressional